and gentlemen, welcome back to another very special, as always, episode of the Hyper-Conscious Podcast. We hope you enjoyed our latest episode where we were lucky enough to sit down with one of my clients, the one and only John Laredo, and chat all about leadership. Today, for episode number 295, we are going to do a 5-minute clinic on changing your identity.
So, before we jump into that episode, first, I want you to go to the hyperconsciouspodcast.com.
Too much sauce on my headphones here.
Too much amplification.
Yeah, that's better.
On the headphones. Turn my mic up. So, the hyperconsciouspodcast.com, click on join hashtag hyperconsciousnation. It's going to take you to our private Facebook group of like-minded growth individuals that are all chasing their goals and dreams courageously.
Nice, strong work.
Thanks, man.
Strong work. We are doing our first solo event. April 25th, Hyperconscious Live is coming to the Woo, Worcester, Massachusetts. As of right now, we have Mark Metry coming. We have Kim and Spike Spencer, Summer Scalero, myself, Alan, and we have 2 other people that we cannot say yet, but we will be able to talk about probably next week.
Yeah, very exciting.
Again, guys, we have gotten so much positive feedback from Top Notch Live that we want to do our own jam, and we want to keep meeting you guys and continue to change lives. So today we're going to talk about identity.
So I wrote an article many years back called Your Identity and the Power of Labels. So I remember when I can't even talk. I remember when I changed my self-label from alcoholic to bodybuilder, and then I started to take action consistent with my identity. So I'll go first, and I'll go very quickly because we've got 3 minutes on the clock.
Sure.
All right. So imagine you got into a car crash, and you're in a coma. You wake up from this coma, and you have no memory of who you used to be. You get told by your family, your closest loved ones, that in your past life prior to the car accident, you were a Navy SEAL. Aren't you going to act, walk, talk, and think differently than you would if you were told you were a bus driver? Now, there's nothing wrong with a bus driver. There's nothing wrong with a Navy SEAL. But what does matter is that your identity does change everything you do and everything you don't do. And here's the interesting thing that Anthony Trucks would say, and he's an expert on identity, that's what he spoke about at Influencer, is what you create creates you. What are you creating in the world? And most importantly, what is that creating of you? So, for example, we're creating this podcast episode, and our identity is that we are podcasters. That is my segment.
That is your segment. I think for most people, you don't identify as something until you do it. So for Alan, he identified as a bodybuilder long before he was a bodybuilder,
right?
Realistically. For me, I finally now identify as a speaker. And it's only because I've given 5 speeches. So our first speech, I didn't identify as a speaker.
That's probably why.
First one, I didn't identify as a speaker. Second one, I didn't identify as a speaker. Third one, fourth one, or fifth one. This was the 6th. Oh, no, this was the 5th.
This was the 5th.
So for the first 4, I didn't. I had to prove to myself that that's what I wanted to identify as. If you guys are out there, Alan is very good at visualizing something and then doing it. He visualized himself as a speaker. He used to do speeches in his driveway for himself. I never did that. I didn't identify as a speaker until I did it. If you're out there, you might not identify as what you want to be until you start doing it. You're not going to identify as a website designer until you start designing websites because you need the belief. Alan believed he could be it. Sometimes you have to be it before you can believe that you can be it.
Right.
And it helps having people in your corner that push you, right? If Alan wasn't a speaker, would I be one? I don't know. I don't know that I would have. And again, I'm not saying this is the right way, right? I don't think there's a right or wrong. But if you want to do something out there and you want to change your identity, you have to start doing things to see whether or not you would like to make that your identity. I used to have the identity of a shy person, right? I was shy. I was socially anxious. Mark Metry talks about that a lot.
Right.
Now my identity is a public figure, a speaker, a podcaster, a coach, right? It's crazy how much things can change. And I used to be a peak performance coach. Now my identity is I work with CEOs in businesses to grow and scale their podcasts. Why? Because that's something I've done. So
Podcast producer, yeah.
if you're out there and you have you're low on the low end of the drive to 5 and you lack belief, you might need to do it first.
Right.
And allow that to lock in as your new identity. Other people say, like, a lot of people would say what you did was fake it so you make it. That's not true. You believed it until you achieved it. A lot of people say fake it so you make it. The problem is, what happens if you never make it? Then you've been faking it the whole time.
Right.
Right? I say get out there and figure out, imagine what would it be like if this was my identity. If I was a speaker, would I like that? What would I have to do in order to do that? Try it out. If you like it, lock it in. If you don't like it, then you get to make your identity whatever you want.
The only caveat to that is be careful because John said this on the podcast that dropped on Sunday. He said, at the end of the day, you like what you're good at. Mm-hmm. Here's the problem. It's very difficult to like something that you're not good at, and it's very difficult to be good at something for the first time.
That's a great point.
So make sure you hang in for a little while. Like Kevin didn't lock in speaking until his 5th one.
Right.
So just make sure you give a few reps.
And it took me 150 episodes.
Right.
I remember when I used to be embarrassed to tell people that I was a podcaster because I didn't want them to listen and not like it.
It's different now.
And now we're 300 in. Like I'm a professional podcaster. This is my job. I do this for a living. Right. I haven't gone and punched a clock in 2 years. You know what I mean?
It's awesome.
And it didn't start like that. My identity got stronger as I got stronger. And if you're out there, you might be very similar to me.
Fire.
What are we doing for the next episode? Did we decide?
We have a bunch of options.
Which one do you want to do?
Let me look at them real quick.
Do.
Kevin gave me a plethora of options.
Yeah, I figured we'll hammer some.
So we've got proactive versus reactive. We've got limiting beliefs. We've got standards, clarity.
I think we should do standards for
small talk.
Small talks.
I digs it.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, we are going to do an episode on standards, and at the end of the day, I think your standards dictate your expectations.
Right.
And if you can control and raise or shift your standards, your whole life will change. So we're going to talk about that.
Gonna be fire.
It's going to be fire. We hope you enjoyed, and we will talk to you on Wednesday.
Talk to you soon.
Bye.